Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here again with Rob Henderson, and we're going to talk about a movie that I've seen get a lot of attention and get people really like it called The Northman. Rob, how are you doing today?
Well, good, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. This is like how's this movie doing in the box office? Is it getting a lot of attention?
I don't actually know. I've heard mixed responses, so I know it's doing really well with the critics and the audience, and sort of getting rave reviews. But I actually don't know how it's doing financially. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've heard that it's had more mainstream success than the other films by the director, Robert Eggers. He directed The Witch in
Uh-huh.
2016, I think, and then he also did The Lighthouse in 2019. And apparently, this movie did better than those two, but it also had a much larger budget. So I'm not sure if
Okay.
it's
So
recuperating.
so it's number 10
Okay,
this
yeah,
week as of May 20th, and it says it's down 40%. So it must have been
uh,
before May 20, a previous chart. Okay, so here's the number. Here's the thing.
oh, I
Let's
see.
see what
Well, at
it
least
says. It's
Wikipedia says it broke even theatrically. So I don't
okay.
know.
So it
That's
was
one of those kind of a mixed success, right? Where like the people, the audience loves it, but it doesn't make much money.
yeah. So it looks like its peak was fourth. The fourth biggest movie in the country, Sonic the Hedgehog. I thought I saw Sonic the Hedgehog ad. I'm like, yeah, come on, I don't want to watch it. Sonic is fun to play. I don't.
Franchise.
It's not a story with a lot of depth, I imagine. And then,
I don't even know.
yeah,
Is it like action? Is it a cartoon? I don't
well,
even know at this
Jim
point.
Carrey is the mustachioed guy. You know who? What's that guy's name? The villain.
Dr. Robotnik?
Yeah, that's Jim Carrey. You haven't seen the commercial? I've seen the. I
I,
saw it on a billboard. Yeah.
yeah, I saw it on an ad on a bus. Like, wasn't that like 2 years ago though? I don't know. COVID ruined like my whole sense of time now.
No,
So
it's happening. It's happening now. I saw the ad not that long ago. But anyways, yeah, this is a movie that people really liked. I liked it too. Spoilers for everyone. You can go watch it on Amazon Prime if you're like me and you find it difficult to get to a movie theater these days.
if you can, I
And,
recommend it. I saw it in the theater and it was really good. This is like one of
yeah,
those ones worth it for the big screen.
yeah, I heard that. I heard that too. And then I wanted to go see it on the big screen, but then family, stuff. Some things you can't do. But yeah, okay. So what? I mean, if you're like in my situation, it's hard to get to a movie theater. You have that option at least. Um, and I saw a lot of people liked it. I mean, I saw that like a lot of like anti woke people were like really into it. A lot of I think this is how I
Hmm.
heard of it. There was this guy Indian Bronson on Twitter.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've met Indian before. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I've also met Indian. He's a nice guy, and he's got I think he's got a movie review. I just saw the title. I didn't read the review. But yeah, spoilers here. So like as always, we like to talk freely. So Rob, what did you think?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it was interesting. I mean, I saw the ads for it, walking around, and then occasionally they'll pop up somewhere. And I thought it was just sort of your run of the mill, oh, like another Viking movie. I never got into any of the Viking stuff. Like, isn't there a show called Vikings? I never watched it. I was just
There
not
is.
that interested in it. I didn't even like the Thor movies that much. I watched the first one, it was okay. So, like, that whole, I guess, genre was never appealing to me. But I did hear, like, just sort of secondhand that this movie was interesting and it was getting good reviews. But, I'm always a little suspicious now when critics like a movie, right? My immediate response is sort of like, what are their motives for liking it? What are, is there an ideology underneath it? But then you said that it was, something that you were interested in. So, like, yeah, I decided to go check it out. It was way better than I expected. Um, yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to see sort of the allusions to prior literary works. I mean, I made this joke to you. I DM'd you like this just looks like. I watched the trailer. I was like, this just looks like The Lion King, but The
Mhm.
Lion King is based on Hamlet, right? So like this movie, you can clearly see the inspiration from Hamlet, and the name of the protagonist in the movie, Amleth, is an anagram of Hamlet. So I
Ah,
think it's paying homage to that, or I don't know. I've also read somewhere that like even this Viking story, like Hamlet itself, the play Hamlet is based on an old Viking story. So there's sort of
mhm.
this loop there. But yeah, I thought the whole movie was great. It had this sort of a somewhat conventional plot, but some interesting twists too that
Yeah.
you wouldn't necessarily anticipate.
Yeah. The I thought of the Lion King analogy too. I didn't see the preview, but I was watching the movie. Even the uncle looks like
Oh
Scar,
yeah. Oh
doesn't he?
yeah.
He's like, yeah, so Scar is like he's got like these sharp features and he's got like black hair with like gray in it, sort of. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, it's like exactly like King. And the son, he's like almost like Emleth is like Simba, sort of. He's very
Yeah.
blonde and sort of
And the
young
father
and
too,
blonde.
right? Like the father who played by Ethan Hawke, right? Was it Orvindale or something? King
Yeah,
Orvindale. He
yeah.
he has sort of lighter hair, lighter features, and yeah, I think that I mean I don't know if it was intentional about it, but you could still see sort of the similarities between this and the Lion King. But
Yeah. So
mm,
here's where I thought the plot was going, and you tell me if you
mm,
thought the plot was going the same way. I thought it was gonna be he gets to goes to like kill Fjordell, and the twist is gonna be his mom doesn't want him to. Gurdon.
mm.
That's the mom, and she's gonna be like she's fallen in love with Fjordell. And so it's foreshadows us a little bit where Olga's like, oh, what are you gonna do? And he's like, don't worry about it. She's just pretending to love him. So I thought they were setting us up for that, but that's not what happened. Did you have the same thought as you were
Yeah,
watching?
there's something interesting going on there, like right at the beginning of the movie, which I remember seeing it, and this is just I guess sort of if you close watch a movie versus sort of casually watch it, I watched it and I was sort of I guess I didn't watch it because I should have, but my girlfriend noticed something in the very beginning. So afterwards, she and I were talking about it, and she said that the very beginning of the movie, and as I thought back, I remembered this scene where so the boy, right, Omleth, he sees his father, arriving on the ships, and then he bursts into the room. His mother's room and says, "Oh, father's here," something like that, and the mother doesn't respond with joy. She sort of chastises him, saying something like, "You didn't announce when you entered these quarters," or something. Like she was clearly unhappy seeing him. And then later on, this is still sort of in the beginning of the movie when Willem Dafoe's character, the fool, makes a joke about the queen. It was the Fjolnir, the uncle, sort of responds like how dare you speak to the queen that way? And so you could tell like early on there's something going on there where like the queen is not maybe necessarily happy in her marriage, and the brother is sort of defending the queen's honor. It was actually the king Orvindale who told the brother to say, "Hey, calm down. It's the fool. He's just
Yeah.
making a joke," kind of thing. So I think the movie is trying to foreshadow that something's going on here, but I didn't really fully pick up on all of this in the beginning. I thought it was going to be a very conventional plot. That was what I was anticipating. Was like, oh, he's gonna go away, he's gonna come back and avenge, and the mom's gonna like greet him with open arms, like, oh, my long lost son, I'm so happy to see you and rescue me from this evil, like sort of like Scar, right? Like the whole Lion King thing. Thank you for rescuing me from this evil tyrant. But it didn't quite go in that direction.
Oh, so you thought that it would be like, she would be thankful. I thought she wouldn't be thankful, but I didn't think she masterminded all the whole thing. I thought that would be the complexity. It wouldn't be like, she was just, evil.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no. I was very much expecting a sort of conventional plot until yeah, I started to rethink more about what had happened before. In the beginning of the scene where they were sort of gently foreshadowing that things are a little bit more complicated than things let on, and later on. So right. I mean, like so in the beginning of the plot, right? Like the after they go through the whole spiritual ritual with the king and the boy and the fool, which I thought was really cool. Like this sort of harkening back to like mysticism and the sort of I don't know, this sort of metaphysical like trances and all those things. I thought that was really an interesting scene. And then
Oh,
yeah,
the one
so
where they become wolves?
yeah, where they become wolves and yeah, like that whole sort of connecting with your sort of animal spirit kind of thing. And then what the uncle, right, goes after the father at that point. They attack him, and then they go after the boy who escapes, and they carry away the mom. This was interesting, right? So they carried away Gudrun, and she seems to be screaming maniacally, like scared. um but then later, right, during the sort of plot twist, she claims that she was actually laughing. Did you buy it? I don't know, there's something off about that.
No. So I have a theory about. First of all, let me respond to your thing about the foreshadowing at the beginning. I didn't take it like that, and I still sort of don't take it. So I thought Fjordell, he got mad at the jester. I thought what they were trying to do there was like, they were like, I guess Fjordell was coming from somewhere else, and his brother, whatever, Arvindel, like it's like they're like civilized people. So it's like, oh, they have a court jester. They get what a court jester is. Well, this guy, like he was like, Fjord was like, he'd never seen a court jester. He just thought like this guy was talking about his dick, like in front of the queen. So that's what I took it as. And then the part at the beginning you didn't announce, yeah, maybe that's something. Yeah, I don't know what exactly that was. But my theory, my theory. So the she says to Amaleth, yeah, I planned the whole thing. I wanted him to kill your father, and I wanted him to kill you. And oh yeah, I was laughing. I don't believe that. I believed that she maybe told herself that story after, or maybe she was trying to get rid of him and protect him, or maybe she told herself that story and then like came to believe it later on. And because when she says I was laughing, like, yeah, clearly that's not the case. Like we saw that, and we can verify that as false. And like the whole village was there. Like it wouldn't she would and so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why would she need to be carried away too, right? Like if the king is dead, why would he need to like grab her and like seize her, right? Like why wouldn't she just sort of walk with him away?
Yeah, it's not like,
Unless it was sort of triumphant, right? Like, yeah, the king is dead, and like he picks her up and she's laughing and they're gonna go have sex or something. Like there was some, yeah, I don't know. It was a little, yeah. I kind of wondered that too. Like, was she, either intentionally or maybe just unconsciously sort of misremembering what had happened, in part to protect her husband, who maybe she now loves. Like maybe at the time she was freaked out, but now they're in love, and it's been however many decades later. They're married. They have 2 sons. And so maybe she's trying to convince Omelette that like
son.
don't kill these people.
That older guy, I don't think was her son.
Oh, it wasn't her, but it was Fjolnir's son, right?
Yeah,
the older one.
Right,
Oh, okay. Is that right? Yeah, that makes sense, because I guess the amount of time that had passed wouldn't necessarily make sense. But yeah, I mean her stepson or whatever. So okay, yeah, maybe she was just trying to protect her family by telling Omeleth this story, this sort of this retconning of history of what had really happened versus the way she wants to remember it, or trying to persuade him that things had gone down differently than he remembered. But I found it interesting because like if that's true, then the movie becomes like way more sophisticated and interesting, in that from Amla's point of view, he's taking on that sort of heroic role of going to kill the evil tyrannical uncle and rescuing his mother in the village from this evil king or something. And but from his mother Gudrun's point of view, like she describes how she was taken as a slave, right? Like she reveals her like branded mark on her chest, and how the king had raped her, and how Amleth was conceived in a rape. And so from her point of view, she's like, I finally got rid of my rapist and the sort of spawn of that unfortunate interaction. And then like years later, he comes back and murders her husband and her 2 sons, or the son, and like wrecks the village, right? Like, so from her perspective, this is like a nightmare. Like Amleth is a nightmare to her,
Yeah, he kills. The interesting, when he kills his mom, we wish you go, thank you. Yeah. So it's like, maybe she wanted him to, kill. Yeah. So you think about this woman's life. So she was taken as a slave once, taken by one king. He's killed. She's taken as a slave. This happens like, multiple times in her life. And she must be going, she must like have some trauma and ways to deal with this. And then he kills her and she's like, thank you. Like my life was sucked so much. Like,
yeah.
So
it's just bizarre.
Yeah, you can't believe
her.
She
might have wanted to die at that point, right? Because after Amleth killed her boy and is clearly about to kill her husband, or at least like, attempt to, maybe she wanted to die after that, like, because she had a fucked up life, right? Like literally her husband died, she thinks her boy is dead, and now her other son is dead, and now her other husband's about to die, like pretty intense. But I thought of her sort of as inspired by it. Like she's sort of like a Lady Macbeth character, the sort of evil queen.
Is the mother Gurdon, is she killed before or after her son in that scene?
I thought. Oh man. Okay, maybe I'm getting the.
Yeah, he kills the wife first. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. First? Yeah, he kills
okay.
He says he kills her first.
Oh, that's weird then that she would say thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so it's not
okay.
because he killed her yeah, it's not because he killed her son, and then the son comes
Mm.
in, jumps on his back, and he, like, accidentally just, like, slashes her.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So he kills her first, and then the son jumps and stabs him repeatedly in the back. So,
Yeah,
yep, that's right. Yeah.
exactly, and then Fyodor just comes in dignified way, "I will meet you at the" like,
The
carries
gates
them
of
up.
hell. Because like that was probably the most silly part of the final scene was actually pretty ridiculous. Like the whole thing
Yeah,
had maintained this interesting line between like realism and like sort of drifting into the fantastical, right? Like there are some scenes where you're not sure they're real, or I guess you're meant to take them as like sort of ambiguous, right? Like when he's injured and he's carried on the horse by Olga, right? The
yeah,
blonde girl, the Slav who he falls in love with. There's this scene where you can't tell if he's unconscious or if he's dreaming or what's going on, but he's like on a winged horse flying to the gates of Valhalla, and she like looks like some kind of demigoddess. um yeah, yeah. I mean, that was an interesting scene. Like, and there are a few of those where like sort of the mystical enters it, like the tree of the gods and those kinds of things, right?
yeah,
Where the
yes.
movie is sort of grounded in something that could be somewhat realistic, but it drifts into but the final scene was like, I don't know, these like he should have bled out by that, like way before that. Yeah, there's a little bit of
I
a
sh I sh you mean he should have bled out before
yeah,
before
suspension of disbelief there. I mean, the
mm,
little kid stabbed him in the back like 8 times. I know they were sort of shallow cuts, but I don't know. You can't get stabbed in the back 8 times and not treat those
huh.
wounds.
Yeah, I guess that's right. The kid stabbed him. You're right, and then he goes, and then he has the sword fight, which was a awesome. I mean, it was an awesome scene. And then, like like I remember how I processed it. Like I processed the head coming off first, than I did Emleth get stabbed. So
Hmm.
I remember that moment. There was a split second, like, oh, he just cut off. I'm like, oh wait, no, he's dead too.
Yeah.
How do you remember how you processed it?
I mean, I thought it was like a simultaneous,
You
like
did.
both of them basically killed the other at the same time, which I thought was fitting, right? Like I sort of knew like when they arrived at the gates of hell in this erupting volcano that there's no way Omelet's going to survive. Like he should have died before that, but fine, okay, I'll accept that he's here to play out the climax of the film or the final scene. So I knew at that point he wasn't going to live, and I liked the way they did that, right? Where it was a sort of like a mutual death, where he kills his enemy. He sort of breaks the cycle, I guess. Like part of remember he has this scene where he didn't even have to do this, right? Like he he had the chance to escape with his love interest Olga,
Uh,
who is pregnant with twins. Somehow they know this, that she has twins, or at least he
like a boy and a
guesses.
girl, and the girl will be a maiden king, right?
Yeah. And then he leaps off the boat as they're going away in order to fulfill this prophecy. Um, and so yeah, I mean, so once that yeah, and then at the end he sort of dies and sort of accepts that, like, okay, he kills Fjolnir. Fjolnir's never gonna go and like look for him or look for his his look for Olga and his children and murder them. So he sort of got what he wanted. It was this bittersweet ending.
Yeah, I think it would have been brave to like let's have Fyodor just kill him. Like Fyodor, it's funny because he's like he's not Scar because Scar is pure evil and even starves the hyenas, and he's just like there's nothing good about well, Fyodor, you don't know. Like, he's
He
yeah, I
doesn't
mean
do
like
anything evil, right? Like, what does he actually do that's evil in the movie?
he kills his brother and takes his wife, I guess, if our interpretation
Well,
is
okay, but again, like assuming that what Gudrun said is
yeah,
true,
that's why it's
she
ambiguous,
hated
yeah.
the king, and the king raped her, and she was a slave, and all right. So, like, if you look at it from that perspective, you could argue that Fjolnir was at least not a bad guy. He sort of saved
Well,
this
no.
woman from this bad guy.
He did some other things too. First of all, he killed the shaman or whatever the guy. Remember, he killed the guy who
Well,
with the vision.
for dishonoring the queen, right, or
Oh,
for disrespecting the queen. That's
wait, what?
was sort of my
Wait,
interpretation, right?
how did the shaman guy disrespect the queen?
The fool in the beginning, right? You're talking about the fool,
No, no,
the jester,
the priest, the one who's in the
the priest.
basement who does the ritual where they become wolves.
Is this a different guy? This is the guy from the very beginning, right? Willem Dafoe's character, or is it a different character you're
No, no, I'm
thinking of?
talking about. So we talked about the scene where the
Yeah.
Amleth has and they go down, and like that priest who was there with them,
Okay.
Fyodor killed that guy, and then when Amleth goes back, the new guy who's there has the skull of the guy, and he says Fyodor killed him.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it's the same guy. The jester
Oh,
slash fool is also the priest. It's the same. Yeah. Willem Dafoe is both. He plays both of the. I mean, he's like the jester slash, I don't know, sorcerer or something. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like, whatever. It was bad that he killed him, but I guess from his perspective, he was doing it to avenge the queen's honor or something. I mean, I guess it was sort of ambiguous, right? Like, I think it was the movie was taking different perspectives. Like, there's no pure like evil or good person.
Were they played by the same guy, or are they different, the same character?
Yeah, they were both played by Willem Dafoe, right? Like you're thinking of the sort of sorcerer guy. They take his head. It's the same guy.
But were they the same character? They were the same character.
I thought so. Well, okay. Now I'm second guessing myself. I think it was
because of the cast on Wikipedia. They say William Dafoe as Hemir the Fool. Now, I think his role as a priest was bigger than.
I think he was both. I thought he played like sort of
like a shaman
slash fool. Yeah, I thought so. Like sort of a witch doctor. I don't know, something like that. So yeah. I mean, anyway, I just thought that.
Okay. You're right. You're completely right. Wikipedia. Yeah. They too participate in a spiritual ceremony overseen by Arvindil's jester Hemil. Okay, so the jester is the. I did not know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So yeah, sort of a like this comical figure who also has a connection to the spirit world. So yeah, so I just thought that like one of the reasons why I thought this movie was a little bit more complex and sophisticated than like a lot of these kinds of movies is that you can sort of make an argument for each character being both good or evil. Depending on whose perspective you take, because from Amleth's perspective, like he's the protagonist, so you're naturally going to take his point of view, and you think like the whole time you're on his side, right? Like when he's, especially at the very beginning as a little boy, he's like rowing his boat, and he's like, I'll avenge you, mother, avenge the mother, save the whatever, and then kill Fjolnir, and then and you're like, yeah, you're right there with him. But then, later, like once the mother sort of explains her point of view, and it gets a little bit more complicated than that. One thing that I was a little confused by was like and this may just be nitpicky, was like the timeline, because like how old was Amleth as a little boy in the beginning of the movie? Like 9 or 10?
Maybe a little. I thought he was a little older. I would have said 12 or something.
12, okay. So he's like 12. And then it doesn't specify how much time has passed. Now, I read like some other articles about the movie, and like some of them don't specify. Some of them say 20 years have passed. And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, so 20 years have passed. Amleth is 30, 32, maybe, something like that. Which, okay, like Alexander Skarsgård in real life is 45. But I guess, like, if you don't look too closely, he could pass for 30 or 32. But then what about Fjolnir? Like, isn't he going to be like an old man by this point? Did you buy that he was sort of like this, like a serious physical challenge to Amleth?
I don't know why you would think it would be 20 years, because how old is the? Well, forget about the other son. He could have been a concubine or something. That didn't mean anything. I thought Amleth could have been in his. I thought he could have been in his 20s. I mean, look, people aged really a lot faster back. I mean, come on, he's a berserker.
That's an interesting. Okay. Okay, so Amleth ages like I guess you would expect, right? Like, for that era. But then Nicole Kidman looks exactly the same, right? At the beginning of the movie, she looks like, I don't know, 41, and then at the end of the movie, she looks like 41-year-old with plastic surgery. Like in real life, like she doesn't age.
I think 10 years. I mean, I think it looked. She had a few wrinkles. I noticed that. I look at women very closely with these things. She definitely had a few wrinkles she didn't have before.
You think they aged her? You think they aged her for the movie?
I was sure they did.
Okay, interesting. I thought she looked the same. Like I thought they were playing a little fat. Because I tweeted this out the other day too. That like there was a show where Alexander Skarsgård, the guy who plays Omelette, was married to Nicole Kidman's character. So they played a married couple, and now in this movie, you're supposed to believe that like she's his mom. And I was like, it's a little bit of a stretch, but and then yeah, so the ages were a little difficult to accept. I mean, and then Fjolnir, like how much time has passed? Should he, especially given what you just said about how fast people age, is he really like physically formidable enough to take on like a Viking in the prime of his life and like a omelet?
Yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones, like the old guys, they stay tough for a very long time.
Hmm.
So Fyodor didn't look like he aged, but except his hair got grayer, and so maybe in 10
Yeah.
years. Yeah, I thought Nicole Kidman got all. It was like one of those things where like when you watch women get older, it's sort of sad, and I was like, oh no, she was so pretty. It was really noticeable to me. So maybe one of us is right and one of
Yeah.
us is wrong. We should go
And
back and
then and then the other thing was the accents. I always, whenever I watch these movies that take place in other countries or other eras, like they weren't speaking English wherever. I mean, in Iceland or Denmark or whatever.
no, they
In
were,
800 AD.
I think they were in the start of the show they were in the North Atlantic, and then they go in Iceland. So they're not from Iceland originally. They end up in Iceland. Now
Where are they
English,
from?
they are from the north. Oh, I looked it up. It was the north. It was somewhere over Scotland.
Oh,
North.
okay, interesting.
But the English they would have been nothing like the English today because you need the Norman
Yeah, yeah.
conquest, you need the blending with French. So like it would have been something. It would have been something like English, pretty very close to English, but definitely not English. Not
Hmm.
not something we'd recognize as like normal for us to listen to.
Okay.
But that's fine. It's close enough. Like I guess like Olga. I guess in the Russian area, I guess they speak Slavic, and then the other Nordic people they speak things more distant from English. It's not like as ridiculous as like you're watching a Russian or Chinese thing. Like it's supposed to be some Russian, and they're speaking English too, just because it's like they need
Well,
to.
I'm more. I don't mind the English. I mean, fine, but then like the accents they choose to adopt. So Nicole Kidman is South African in real life. I wonder, like, did she just speak in her natural South African accent? Skarsgård is, I think he actually is like Danish or something. Did he just speak the way he wanted? But then the Arvindil, Ethan Hawke, is an American, right? But he didn't just speak like some dude from Ohio, right? Like he spoke in some kind of like what was like the sort of accent coaching like? Like what were they told to speak like to I guess like give this sense that this is like an otherworldly, different time, different place, different culture. So same thing with like Gladiator, right? Like, did you ever see Gladiator with Russell Crowe? Like everyone's speaking in this sort of like weird Australian/British accent, and this is supposed to be like Rome in 200 AD or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So, like, yeah, you could talk about Game of Thrones, something like that. So,
Mm.
like, okay, yeah, there's English that is like the kind of British accent is sort of like standard for something that's
It's like
supposed to be
the go-to for like
older
foreign
series.
accent.
Yes, but even if it's like so, like or even a foreign country, like or something like that, you're looking at like like a movie about Nazi Germany or something. It's going to be something like British English or like very formal, like because we imagine these foreigners like if they spoke English, I don't know, they would speak in a very formal way. But it's never like an American accent. It's never a Southern American accent. It's never Ebonics. You can imagine. You can imagine like it's might as well. I mean, it's like world. They're
Ebonics,
world.
omelet,
They're
and yeah,
yeah,
the
ancient Rome. I mean,
Vikings.
yeah, ancient Rome. I mean, Ebonics is just as close as British English. Um, so you're right. I
Did
think yeah,
you?
but
Okay, so speaking of, I mean, I guess this is as good a time as any to bring this up. Was like, were you surprised that so I never got into Game of Thrones. I watched the first season a couple times. It just wasn't my thing. But did I don't know? Was there ever any kind of like weird shoehorned diversity in that? Like, one thing that surprised me about this movie was that like everyone looked like they were from where they said they were from.
yeah,
Uh, Other movies and other shows don't do that. They always, like even Thor, right? Like Thor, there's like Asian and black, I don't know, whatever, Vikings or something.
no, in Game of Thrones, there's never this shoehorned diversity, and this is one of the cool things about it. So there's it's geographically based, and it's like realistic in that way. So people get darker as you go further south. So
Oh,
it sort of
interesting.
resembles like human, like like Westeros is like the main thing where it all starts, and that is like, they're just, they look like Northern Europeans, and and then you go south, and there's this place called Dorne, and it's supposed to be like Italy or Turkey, so they're all like darker, sort of Mediterranean. And then like there's like like an area, like you cross the sea, and then there's an area that sort of represent. There's supposed to be these people who sort of are supposed to be like the Mongols or something. They're like, hordes. They're like a tribe, and they're sort of they're Asiatic looking. And then you
Okay.
have like a place like Egypt, and it looks like, it's sort of mixed. They're like, they're like Arabs or like part black. And then there are no, like, I think there is supposed to be some place called like the Sun Islands or something, and like we just see people from there, but we never see there. But and sometimes you have these like Mediterranean cities like that are like free cities, so those are like more mixed, and so you'll see like black people and white people. But it's like the idea that these are like, like urban centers where like a lot of people come to engage in trade. So it's cool. It's
Interesting.
not just like, it's like, because it's based very closely. The first few seasons, it gets some stupid feminist stuff at the end, but the race stuff, it never gets. It's always, pretty realistic, and not forced. It was adhering pretty closely to the books, that were at least until the last few seasons, when they got past the books. But it was adhering to the books that were written in the 1990s. And you're right, this did not. I mean, it's like a radical like thing to just portray Vikings as all Vikings. Now, Thor. I don't know. I didn't see Thor, but it's like, it's mystical. So I guess you can do whatever you want. For this,
Yeah.
it'd be very strange, right?
Yeah, I guess like with Marvel, right? Like there is something, because I just saw the new Doctor Strange movie, and I wrote a review of it. But one thing that they didn't put in there was about how, like they where Doctor Strange, he trained to become a sort of sorcerer in, I don't know, like somewhere in India or Nepal, Bhutan, somewhere, in South Asia. But then like this monastery he trains, it's like it's like the most diverse sort of, like, it's like a pamphlet for an elite university where they have like, one of everyone. And like you would clearly not expect any monastery in that part of the world to be so, so ethnically diverse. But I guess like, Marvel's for kids, whatever. Like they do that stuff. But for this one, I was interested, that they didn't have any of that. It was all sort of it's weird that something so, I guess, mundane would be surprising. That this is supposed to be like historical fiction, um, and yeah, there's no weird racial surprises in there. It's just everyone looks like where you would think they're from.
Yeah, so I wasn't surprised going into it because I saw the kind of people who like the movie. So I thought, yeah, there's not going
All
to be any
right. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I'm curious about the direct. So I never saw his other movies, Robert Eggers, but I have heard good things about The Witch and The Lighthouse, and I'm probably gonna watch those movies soon. I'm gonna take a long flight in the next few days. I'll probably watch at least one of those movies. But I
Mhm.
read this interview with him, Robert Eggers, and he says that he's a student of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell, and just sort of this idea that like myth has something to offer, this sort of archetypal storytelling. And so I have this quote here. He says, I get why the Aztecs practiced human sacrifice. That's not a big leap for me personally. Having a religious system where the gods are multifaceted and you're also having to like embrace darkness and death makes more sense to me than how we're living. Um,
Mhm.
and so he has this sort of this awareness and this understanding of some kind of like, the I guess this respect for older cultures, and this idea that the way we're currently living, modernity, and this sort of the level of comforts that we experience, there's something unnatural and unreal about it. And I think that's why he directs these movies that take place in other times, right? Like The Witch took place in like the Puritan colonies or whatever in the, I think, the 18th century. And The Lighthouse, like these two guys get stranded on an island, I think in the 19th century. And obviously this movie. And so I wonder, like, if Robert Eggers might secretly be, maybe a different political orientation than many of his friends in Hollywood.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that, you're not interested in, like, I don't know, if you're a liberal, you're not interested in uh Nordic. I mean, so apparently Nordic studies. I saw I saw an op-ed. Like you look at people in Nordic studies, like universities. I saw one op-ed by somebody who was a Nordic studies professor, and it was just like it was against immigration into Nordic countries. It was trying to make some kind of it was like in the New York Times, and it was like trying to make some kind of economic argument. I'm like,
Oh.
oh, that's interesting. A so-called studies professor is like against immigration, like in the New York Times. Like, who are these Nordic studies types? Like, what are they? What are they into? I think that like what kind of person goes into Nordic studies? So medieval. There was a thing about medieval studies like becoming like woke, and maybe the woke people they don't have enough energy to do all this stuff. So like the Nordic studies people just sort of draws maybe more right wing people. But I think you're right. There was a very masculine energy to this thing. And I was like surprised and happy that it could be made in the current year. Um,
Yeah, I
and
think he got very lucky with the timing, right? Like, I don't think this movie could have been released a year ago, and it definitely, I don't think, would have been able to be released, or if it did, it would have been a different reception 2 years ago, right? Well,
yeah,
maybe not quite. It's May 24th as we speak, so May 25th was when things kind of changed. But yeah, I think like roughly 2 years ago, this movie would have had a much more difficult time. Just sort of like the subject matter. It's the lack of diversity in the cast.
too
It's
white, too male. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
think
too
it's so
male.
any. You can't have like a Nordic story. It's just like it's. I don't think like like yeah. Today's May 24th, 2022. Who knows what the current thing will be tomorrow? But it's like if you have a fantasy, it's like a thing where like it's not like you can't have like a story about Nordic history. It's like I think
But
most
I feel
people in
like if
Hollywood.
you make those kind of movies now, you have to like introduce or insert some kind of like, socially acceptable message that flatters
I don't think you have to.
morality in the current age. No?
Most Hollywood people are not gonna be interested in that kind of movie, and if they are, they're gonna want to do something like that. I think you can if you want. So if it's a fantasy world, if there's any like you can't just make half of them black in this, but like it's just you can't do that, or you can't even make like black people. Just doesn't make any sense. But if it was a fantasy world, if it wasn't supposed to be close to some kind of historical thing, I think there would have probably been more of an expectation of that. It depends on how successful things get. Like Game of Thrones got so successful that like the retards in Slate like start paying attention and they're like, oh, women, how are women portrayed? How are minorities portrayed? Like it didn't rise to that level of a cultural phenomenon. Um, Game of Thrones first few seasons, well, that was a long time ago. That was a different century. But yeah, I don't
Well,
think
that was a fantasy too, though. Like Game of Thrones was a different,
it was a
which
fantasy. It was a fantasy. It was close. Yeah, but it was the first few seasons of Game of Thrones was out. That was before like we'd gone completely insane on this stuff. Um,
yeah.
and then Northman, yeah, I don't think it's so bad. Like I just think a lot of people in Hollywood wouldn't make this film, but I don't think you can't make a film like this. I don't think we're in that bad a
Yeah.
shape.
I was curious about so there was a scene in the movie where Amleth he decides to make Fjolnir's life miserable by like every night or something he would just like kill someone and like dismember their bodies and nail them to like the houses.
Yeah,
And one of the characters, one of Fjolnir's henchmen, says something like, could it be the Christian monsters? Their god is a corpse nailed to a tree.
yeah.
And this made me think of. Did you ever see Apocalypto, the
Mm.
2006 movie directed by Mel Gibson? That was a really good movie. I recommend it. But one of the so one of I remember reading this. One of Mel Gibson's inspirations for making that movie was to basically portray like so it's about like this sort of Aztec or Mayan, this sort of I don't know Mesoamerican culture before contact with the Europeans, before the colonialists arrived. And I mean, it depicted like human sacrifice and all the things that from the quote I just mentioned by Robert Eggers, right? And sort of the brutality of that kind of culture. And I read that Mel Gibson, one of his interests in making this film was about portraying a world before Christianity, right? Like
Mm.
before the sort of softening influence of Christian morality, like what did societies look like? And there's this like crazy scene of like a pyramid of skulls and just like totally like horrific violence. And this movie kind of made me think of that too, with that scene about like, oh, Christian monsters. And I wondered if there was also this implicit commentary about like this is what like how brutal life can be, that, like before the sort of rise and spread of Christianity. that sort of this Viking culture, this sort of overt like glorification of violence, or what did you think about this? Because I'm not actually not a religious person, but I find these arguments about Christianity interesting. Some people on the right sometimes make these arguments, and Tom Holland wrote this book called Dominion, which makes this argument. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I mean, maybe comparatively it got better. I mean, it's not like we look at the Middle Ages now and say, "Oh, what a humanitarian paradise." Maybe it mellowed people out a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if that's a huge. So when he says that, I remember the scene. He says, maybe it's the Christians. So they're shocked by it. I mean, they think it's a big deal, and they assume that the Christians would do this, right? So it's not like the Christians have a reputation of being pacifists in this time. So
Yeah. Okay.
that doesn't
Yeah, I
the
wonder
Christian.
about that. Historically, we're like, yeah, we're. I mean, I just can't imagine that. Like, I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. Did they commit violence on the same scale as the Vikings, right? Like the pagans, you know?
I mean,
Because I mean,
Christian.
weren't
Yeah,
they still kind of
there were
hunted? Weren't they still kind of like, uh, beleaguered religious
not that
minority? Or
around 900. I
okay,
mean, this was like basically Europe was basically Christianized, except for a few places like the
okay.
Baltics, and a lot of these people are isolated from mainstream Europe. So Christianity has taken over, and Christianity, I mean, kills tons of
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
almost the Crusades.
I guess like one difference though, I mean, would be so I guess like the way that whatever like the great sort of pacification, the sort of the trend toward peace was that the arguments were that like Christians like failed to live up to their own ideals, right? Like the sort of like the what prizing sort of gentleness and meekness and all those kinds of things, right? Like that was Christianity not living up to its own ideals, whereas like the Vikings didn't even have those kinds of ideals in the first place, or
Yeah,
the sort of pagan religions had
I
nothing
buy.
in their scriptures about like being like a nice and gentle person, whereas
Yeah,
the Christian
yeah, I buy
scriptures
this. I
did.
mean, there's a right wing critique of Christianity. The same thing, like Nietzsche, like hates Christianity, like for this reason, and sort of
The
thinks the
slave
pagans are.
morality idea.
Yeah. So yeah, it's believable. So yeah, this takes it starts in 895. The first Crusade's 1096. So this is well into Christendom.
Okay, right.
And
Interesting.
this is after the Holy Roman Empire. This is after all of that. So yeah, Christianity is there, and it's a huge force. And these people are just isolated. I mean, they're isolated. They're not part of mainstream Europe, which is why they're not Christians, and they're still doing their own thing. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So, I don't know. But what does he say when he says? Does he say like the Christians wouldn't? What does he say? Do you remember when he says like, "Are they? Was it the Christians?"
Yeah, I just remember him saying like, oh, were these like the Christian monsters or something along those lines, or
Yeah.
they don't say barbarians, but they say something along those lines.
Yeah, and the Christians aren't very nice to the holdouts to Christianity. I mean, I think that they would expect that they're not Christian, so they would be pretty intolerant towards them and their faith. So
All
I
right,
don't know.
so the rise of the Christians, and yeah, okay, so they were like slowly swallowing up the pagans at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Shout out to Razib Khan's cryptic tweets. Um, Yeah. Okay. That makes sense then. But then yeah. So I guess yeah. I don't know if I was reading too much into that comment or what. And then yeah, that's sort of the parallel with at least what I remember about Apocalypto and the contrast between like the commentary on Christianity's influence versus like what these older societies look like. But then at the same time, Robert Eggers did say that like like the Aztec sacrifice makes more sense than the way we're living now.
Yeah, he might be a Nietzschean more than a Christian moralist.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a critique of it. Like Christianity is going to come and it's going to do this to people in the name. So the one thing about the Vikings is they don't like care about this is the pagan thing. They don't care about your religion. They might kill you for other reasons, but they don't care about what gods you worship. So like the Christians would do this like an unprovoked attack because somebody just has a different faith. Maybe it's a sort of a critique of Christianity.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that going either way, right? Like I guess that kind of comment actually is sort of perfectly ambiguous in that sense where pro and anti-Christians could find something to kind of appreciate about it. Because of course, like if you're an anti-Christian, that comment would be like, oh yeah, of course, like Christians are evil and they would kill someone like this. Like that's just, how they are. But then if you're a pro-Christian, you would think like, oh, like this is sort of a contrast between, what Christianity was versus what these people are like, something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, but the question about these killings, and the question, I mean, the sort of more meta question about the movie is like, is Emily? So you said, Emleth I think you said Emleth was like a good guy or supposed to be sympathetic, and like naturally because he's a protagonist, but he's evil. I mean, they even tell him like explicitly. Like, it was who told him this? Like, you have to choose between kindness. There was the second, the jester's replacement. Tells him you
Oh, the
can be.
prophecy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can be either, kind to your own people or good. And like he chooses like get revenge. Like these are still his people, like his dad's people, and he just like murders them all just to get at Fyodor. Like instead of just even
Yeah.
killing
He
Fyodor,
had he had a chance too to live a peaceful life. I mean, I guess like his reasoning was like, oh, if we go away, then we'll always have to worry about Fjolnir coming after us.
no, but he didn't
But
have to
yeah.
kill all the other. He didn't have to kill all the other people to make Fyodor feel bad. He could have just killed Fyodor. He's like, I'm going to kill every one of like my father's people, like so Fyodor could get like miserable over time, and then like eventually kill Fyodor. Right? The revenge thing is
Yeah.
just like he doesn't have any caring about anyone else or what happens to them.
Yeah. Which I thought was actually pretty realistic, right? Like there was no kind of like moment where he does something well, I guess okay, so the one thing he does do, like, the sort of selfless moment is he does save Olga, right? Like aren't they about to brand her or kill her
Yeah,
or something, and then
yeah.
he says like, oh, I
And
have your
he
son's
saved
heart.
that girl who was going to be sacrificed too. Remember, they were going to do this sacrifice because of his fault. He killed somebody. Then they were going to sacrifice this young girl, and then he like he rescues her. He carries her out, has a seat, and he like replaces them with like somebody different. Like so, he saves a woman, but it doesn't matter. He's killing everyone in the village. I mean, he's killing or leading
Okay.
everyone to be killed anyway.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. He had saved that other girl. Okay, so they do give him a couple of moments where he's not completely self involved, but yeah, I mean, strictly speaking, like from the outside, like that village just thinks that oh, he's just like a slave with good teeth, right? Like they almost didn't take him. Remember, like when they rounded them up, they had the ropes, on these slaves, and Fjolnir's inspecting them, and I think he doesn't even want them initially. And then at the last minute, Omelette, he like growls and makes some noises to like, I guess, sort of signal his sort of
He doesn't just growl.
robustness and strength.
He pulls the other slaves down. He like does
Oh, he
something really.
does.
Yeah, and then they fall. So he's showing he's strong too. This
Ah,
is
right.
when
Okay.
they get to live.
Okay, yeah. So that was, so then like they end up taking him, but then I guess like for Fjolnir and literally everyone else in that village, they just think like, oh, he's just a nice slave, and then he starts like systematically murdering people every night. Is like a nightmare, right? Like you could film this movie a completely different way, where Omelette is like
Yeah.
like a demon from the outside world or something. Especially if you
Well,
have no idea why, right? Like no one knows why he's doing these things. Only he knows. And until the mother and Fjolnir discover who he is, they're like just terrified that like what's going on here, that people are dying every night.
yeah, I mean, I guess going back to the time thing too. If it's only 10 years, like I thought, I mean, does nobody recognize him? I mean, don't you need? Maybe they age quickly. I don't know. People, there's generational turnover. Old people are dying, and new people. Okay, so maybe that's not a big deal.
I don't know. That was no when I was 10 years. I don't know. You think that Olive could be what, 22 years old, like at the most? According if he was 12 as a kid. I don't know.
In 800, in the 10th century, I don't know, like, maybe
22.
15 years. How old was he?
Yeah.
Maybe 13. I mean, listen, kids were.
I think that they meant to leave that ambiguous, because I like I said, I read a few different places where 20 years had passed, but then the film itself, it just said years later. It didn't specify 20 or 10 or any. It just said years. And I think we're not supposed to maybe think too deeply about it, but because once you do, things, I don't know. So some of the aging doesn't necessarily make sense. But yeah, I mean, I would have thought that maybe if anyone, his mom would have recognized him, but I guess she didn't really spend much time interacting with him either.
Yeah, they didn't.
Up until that point.
You're right. Yeah, because like one point he like looks at her in a room and she goes, "Close the door." She's not hanging out with the slaves, so she might never see him. And then Fyodor, I think, doesn't know him well because Fyodor seems to be returning from a thing or something. So he's when he in the opening scenes when he's Avardil or whatever is the father's name. It seems like
Coverdale, yeah.
Fyodor is coming. Like I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like the Fyodor's spending a lot of time with the son, and knows him anyway. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, but Amleth, I mean, is an evil character. I mean, look, he
What
will kill
was
everyone. He is focused on one mission, which is avenging his father, and he cares about saving his mother, and he cares about Olga. Like, okay, like that's the bare minimum. Like you care about like the people, like your mother and your girlfriend, right? But like everyone
that?
else, he'll murder, and like
What was
he was
going on with that kissing scene, right? Like we haven't got to that like weird incestual, like or the sort of Oedipal scene, right, where the mom like comes close to him and like there's this weird like tense like I don't know 10 seconds or how I don't know, felt like 10 seconds where like she sort of slowly inches to him and then starts kissing him and he doesn't pull back right away. Like they kiss for an uncomfortable amount of time, right? Like I think any sane man in that
I think
circumstance would have immediately pushed her away or
yeah.
recoiled. And he was like clearly uncomfortable, but they like had this strangely intimate kiss. Like
Mm.
what was that? Like, do you remember what her like what were her motives for doing that to him?
Well, I mean, his
Was
mom
she just a
was
crazy?
he had a hot mom, I guess. He hadn't seen her in a while. He didn't think about her as her mom. Maybe she didn't recoil that. He didn't think about her as his mom. I don't know.
No. There's no. He wasn't he already banging out the slave by that point? The Olga chick, had they not been?
No,
I don't know. There's
yeah,
no
he
way.
said,
No. This doesn't make any sense. No, that couldn't possibly have been like what was
he's
that?
not.
Well, I guess both of them. Like, why did she start kissing him, and then yeah, why didn't
Why
he?
did why did she start kissing him? I think helps my theory. Okay, she's got a defense mechanism, right? Where anyone who's gonna like kill whoever's gonna come in the village is like gonna want to have sex with Nicole Kidman, and they're gonna want to take her. So she's gotta like make good with like whoever. And so like her son is just like another conqueror. Like Fjorda like killed her.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
Fjorda killed her husband.
She just takes
He's
the
gonna kill him.
alpha,
Yeah,
even
it's
if
like
it's her own son. It's
yeah,
like
it's like subconscious or like it's just like way her like the way she like fine. She's like, thank
survival.
you. I don't have to do this anymore. Like I don't have to just go with whoever's gonna slay my next husband.
That's interesting because if you sort of excavate her past, it's entirely possible that like she's been through this more than what we saw in the movie, right? Like she might have been married to like 6 or 7 kings by now, like
And she
each of
says,
whom had killed the other in succession.
yeah, and she says to him like she doesn't say I want to have sex with you now. She's like, if you are able to like kill him, then you will be my king or something like that, right? So she's
Oh
like saying
God.
happens, then you and then he's I don't know he's shocked. I don't know, who knows how people will react. He's shocked. He just heard his mom like killed his dad and wanted to kill him, and then she kisses him. He doesn't know what's
Yeah.
going on. I don't know
Yeah.
about
He
his.
might have already been like trying to process everything else, but I just feel like yeah, that was just a weird like why not just like shove her away and be like, are you sick? Like what's wrong with you? And walk out.
He must have been.
Or
That
just
he
yeah.
had a lot going on at that moment. I mean,
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
processing a lot of new information he didn't realize. Yeah. Okay, so well, I definitely buy the idea that maybe she was just like freaking out that like yeah, Fjolnir's probably about to die. This like much younger, stronger man is probably about to be the new leader of this village. So I don't want him to kill me. But then on the other hand, she like literally confessed to arranging his father's death, right? Which is like a weird like if you're gonna make good with this guy who's clearly there on a mission to avenge his dad, why are you like, actually I had him killed. I guess she did say that your father was a rapist and like not a good guy. So yeah, that
so
was a very
Mhm.
was she trying to win him over? Was she trying to like yeah, that was very, very like inconsistent strategy.
Yeah. Well, maybe it changed. Maybe if she starts, the first strategy is, maybe the
Process
first,
of like he wasn't actually a good guy. Leave him alone. Oh, okay. You still love him. Okay, well, you can take me.
yeah, your dad sucks. Like, just go,
Yeah.
and then she's like, maybe she wants him to run away. So she's like, I wanted to kill you, and like, you're not going to save me, so just like go away. And then X is like, oh, you're going to stay and go kill him. Okay, you're my king now. I love you.
Oh God, like you're my Jesus. That kind of makes a twist like in a twisted way. That logic makes a little bit of sense.
maybe this is a feminist movie after all. Maybe it's a movie about
Yeah,
women in prehistoric, in early, history,
the things they had
just
to do
so
to.
terrible and having to do terrible things, and being like, they're the real victims, and all these wars and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
wonder. I really want to
it's.
know. Maybe I'll go read the interviews or see. I really want to know if she's remembering that accurate. I mean, that will solve a lot. If she's remembering, what happened accurately, or she's making it up, or she just told herself that
I
story. That
wonder
will.
if
It's
the
an anti. If she planned the whole thing, it's an anti-feminist movie. It's like she's just evil, and that's that. Not anti-feminist. Just doesn't have a position. She's just an evil person and did an evil thing. But it's much more subtle and cool if she convinced herself of that, and then like everything changes. Fyodor becomes like a good guy, right? Like everything changes at that point.
yeah, I wonder if there's any interview or any like, yeah, if the director has commented on this, or like I would be interesting just to see that scene again where he's Fjolnir is carrying her away in the beginning of the film after he kills Arvindil. Like, does it sound like she's laughing? Is there any clear like is there actual evidence that's what had happened? In basically, yeah, that would make the movie, yeah, it would just sort of clarify
He's carrying
what
her,
she
and
was
she's
doing.
like, do women laugh when they're getting carried away over their shoulder? It's just
I mean,
like,
it depends on the circumstance. Like, if she's laughing out of joy, right? Like, if she's a psychopath who's happy that her husband's dead, I mean, I guess it's, at least like in terms of the context of the movie, it's possible.
you don't carry. I mean, I
But
don't know. Do you carry away like you carry away like a slave? Do you like she's your queen? Like, do you carry her off like a if you're if
I
look
mean, like,
if
have you ever, like carried a girl and she's like sort of like like laughing and like, I don't know, just like, I don't know. I can buy it. It just didn't sound like that in the movie though. It
they have
sounded like
I
she
don't
was
think
screaming.
spontaneous in this culture. I think they have a formalized way of like taking power, and it's like you carry away it symbolizes something. I don't think it's just like it's a public display. It's a public display. They're doing it in front of her. Like you think about this community, the king was just killed by his brother. The queen, like people are wondering what's going on. They're doing something for the audience. They're not just fooling around or like indulging like their feelings. They're doing something. They're kind of some kind of performance. And if she's like screaming at her, like her performance is like, I didn't want this to happen. Which maybe like who knows, like
Yeah.
maybe she was in on it, but then she had to cry because like she whatever, the audience like didn't like would have hated her too much if she actually killed her husband, but then she goes and tells him the truth, but then lies about this one part about her laughing because like whatever, she doesn't remember, she's just got to make the story, it's too much to explain like to Hamlet at that moment, so she just tells him I was laughing when she wasn't. Yeah, it's a very I love this. There is a
Yeah.
mystery here. There's a mystery at the heart of this movie.
That was why,
Uh,
yeah, that was why I liked it more. Like that was basically the main reason. I mean, everything else about the movie was pretty cool, but otherwise it would have been a sort of conventional narrative. But the fact that you don't know what really happened in those opening scenes and what the queen was thinking the entire time is what makes it like a unique story.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I wondered why they introduced that scene or included the scene of Amleth killing the boy, right? Like that was kind of a shock for me. Like I kind of like understood him killing his mom, obviously killing Fjolnir, killing the adult son, but then killing the little boy was like kind
that
of
was,
a
that
kind
was
of a
accidental.
shocking moment.
Yeah, I think that was
It was
accident.
an
It wasn't.
accident, kind of, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was just an accident. I
yeah.
mean, it's the lesson that Almuth is like he doesn't want to kill the boy, but it's his half brother. I mean, but he is.
Hmm.
He is closer than half brother because you know about the evolution. It's like his dad's brother's the son too,
Oh
and so
yeah,
he's
yeah. What are the
yeah,
yeah, like
he's something
how
like
much of their
yeah.
DNA overlaps
Yeah,
there?
yeah. He's like midway between. He's like a three quarters brother.
Is it
Um,
yeah, interesting.
I think
Oh,
yeah,
because
and
it's
so
cousin, right? He would be like cousin plus brother, so like 1/8 plus 1/2 is like 5/8 brother, something like, yeah, I think that's right. Because Fjolnir is his uncle. Yeah, what's
Yeah,
the
Fyodor has. Yeah,
what's the
Fyodor
sort of
has.
like the Hamiltonian kind of
Yeah, Fyodor has exactly. So, yeah, I mean, the lesson is Almeth, like, he doesn't want to kill this kid, but he's like, he doesn't give a shit. He's like, he'll kill it. He'll burn down the whole village as long as his toxic masculinity is fulfilled. He gets to avenge his dad. Like, it's just like so. I guess that it's just such a, it's just so monomaniacal, and we sympathize with it because we're just like, yeah, cool, but like we don't care that, like, he's destroying everyone's life and he's killing everyone. I mean, we're just supposed to be like, whatever. I mean, it's just like, yeah, get Fyodor. It's all we care about.
I mean, like, I think the probably the typical audience member might like not really think, but I was pretty shocked that they included a scene where he killed a little boy, even if it was on accident. And I mean, again, it made sense in the context of the movie, where of course, like, you need a scene where Amleth is weakened in some way, because otherwise you would just expect him to crush Fjolnir. Like, given like how strong he is, like, he's repeatedly shown to be like almost supernatural in his abilities, right? Like, there's the scene in the very beginning where they're sieging, what is it, approaching the gates of this village, and
Doing a siege, I
like,
think.
someone, yeah, siege, and one of the, like, someone throws, I think they either throw a spear, yeah, it was like a spear, and then almost just catches it and throws it right back and kills the guy. And like, later on, there's the scene where they're playing that like weird Viking lacrosse game, and there's like the big guy, like, tries to hit the ball towards Amleth, and he like very easily dodges it. And there are like a couple other scenes like this where he has like almost supernatural strength. And so yeah. Anyway, like, you would expect him to easily defeat Fjolnir, so you need to have him in a weakened state in the final scene. But yeah, I mean, were we supposed to believe that Amleth was just a mortal, or were we supposed to believe that he had some kind of some kind of a supernatural gifts in his, if whether through maybe the shamanic ritual that he underwent, or
Yeah.
something else?
I think he does have a gift, but I think like everyone sort of can see things. Like, so Olga is unquestionably is like a witch. She's like special. She's like different in some way than other people. Amleth, I think it's like the rich. Anyone can go through the ritual, or maybe everyone has visions, right? So he sees like this tree of kings, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Does Fyodor have visions? Probably not. Does Gurdon have? Probably not. Yeah,
Is that
maybe.
true though? Like, what's special about Olga? Like, what is she? I mean, I know she has that scene where she's like, "Oh, I can mess with men's minds," or something like that.
Well,
But
didn't
like,
she? Didn't she? Wasn't something about the mushrooms? I don't know if she just like was an expert in mushrooms. I don't know. I thought it was something magical.
right, okay, yeah. I thought they were burning mushrooms. Yeah. I don't think that was like. But again, like, maybe the movie likes to play this, to make it deliberately ambiguous about whether the what's real and what's not, whether people do have sort of spiritual abilities or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think if he has supernatural abilities. It's not. Well, I mean, the crows come and they
They
let
pick
him
him,
go.
yeah. They save him. That was like that. Yeah, that was kind of an odd
I thought
scene.
they
I
were gonna. I
mean,
thought they were gonna eat him. I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
they were gonna
There were
eat.
a bunch of him. They were pecking away at him, and yeah, I expected yeah, but that didn't. Yeah,
I
that
thought the
didn't
movie
happen.
would end there. I thought it was gonna be like a sad ending where, like, he was eaten by crows and just like sort of died there in a sad way. But
That would
then
have
it
been a
continued.
terrible ending.
You think so? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's because it's incongruent with what you expect. Like this, you expect what happened. Hell, at the end, okay, it's cool, it happened, but like, just to be like, all it leads to is him just like dying in a barn, eaten by crows. Like, I think there's sort of something cool about that too.
I guess it would have
Um,
been like a more realistic movie in a way, but it also, yeah, I mean, it would have been like a sort of more artistic choice to end
yeah.
it, sort of more, yeah, but
Well, Game of Thrones has some
yeah.
twists like this. I mean, if you want to get into Game of Thrones later, I mean, it has twists that are very interesting and dark and sort of not what you expect, like the standard
Hmm.
heroic showdown or whatever. Um, yeah, and so yeah, I mean, I like this movie. I like this movie a lot. They're gonna the
I
woke
hope
stuff might come in
it's.
the second movie. I mean, the fact that we're foretold it's going to be a woman king. I mean, so we have something to look forward to. It looks like they're setting us
Oh,
up for a.
I hope they don't do a sequel. Oh, come on. I don't.
It
Yeah,
depends on if
I
it's
don't
good
think
or
they
not.
will.
If
It
it,
wasn't even that successful. Financially, it wasn't even a success, right? Like, it looks like it was a hit with like the people who did see it, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna like trigger a franchise or like a trilogy or anything. I mean, maybe. I mean, it's possible. It was a very good movie, and yeah,
mm,
I mean, I hope that yeah, like I said, I'm gonna check out the other movies that Robert Eggers did. I'll probably start with The Lighthouse, and see how I like that one. Willem Dafoe's in that
Okay.
one too.
Maybe we'll maybe we'll
So
maybe we'll maybe we'll do a show. Maybe we'll do a show
yeah,
on this. Yeah.
another
This
another kind of what toxic masculine film. My understanding is that it's literally just those Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are the only two actors in the entire movie. So no women, which is very very anti-feminist of him.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a show. Okay, it's a movie with only two characters. Okay. This sounds interesting. Yeah. I guess I'll watch this too. Yeah. I wouldn't mind if you don't want a sequel. I mean, is it just because you're worried it's going to be woke, or you just don't want it? Period.
Which a sequel you mean
Right.
or?
Different. You said you don't want to see a Northman sequel, right?
I
You
don't
said you hope
know. I
it's
mean, I generally don't like sequel. I mean, unless it's based off of like, some pre-existing whatever, like some superhero stuff or whatever, fine. But generally, sequels are worse than originals. And I think this is like a good story that stands on its own. And I could easily see them sort of ruining it by trying
it's
to
easier
carry the
to
story
ruin. Yeah,
forward.
it's easier to ruin things than build. But I did get hope that like you could have this non woke thing that like it's a franchise that starts in 2022, right? And it doesn't have any of this aspect. If you can still do that and you can maintain it, that is like that's cool. Like I don't like every single thing that like is not everything that's like new is woke, and like you're just remaking the same things over. And I think that's part of action. I think everything has to be so stupid and woke. Like it's like it's not natural to have like a gender diverse, racially diverse world of like superheroes. It's just like it's a sort of unnatural thing that you're forcing. But if you grandfather things in, that's different. So if this can be something that's like not like that, it's unique for the current year, and you have that excuse because it is. Yeah, I wouldn't mind watching a sequel. I just you can ruin it. That is the problem. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just really liked this one. And yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like if he makes a sequel and it looks decent, I'll go see it. But yeah, at this point, yeah, I'd rather him like continue on like exploring other historical epochs and telling different kinds of stories in this way that are clearly like not contaminated with whatever's going on in the current year. I think
Yeah,
like yeah, these kinds of stories are really interesting to sort of be faithful to the time that it was in and not whitewash it or try to view it through the lens of our like
yeah,
current
yeah. I mean,
morality.
yeah, I love that if this is on its surface. I love if it's on surface. This is like a Nordic tale of triumphalism that, like, all these right wing people like, but on beneath it, it's like a feminist tale. I would love that interpretation. I actually sort of want that interpretation to be true, but not a stupid feminist thing, but like a feminist thing based in reality. Like, oh yeah, women were kidnapped and raped, and bad things happened to them, which is like a realistic, not like oh there's a glass ceiling and they can't be king. It's like no, like actually like how women were wronged in like a historically accurate way. Like I would be, that would be interesting if that's actually the story here.
That is interesting. I mean, I remember reading this article with Alexander Skarsgård, the guy who plays Amleth, and one of the things he said was that something he read about this culture was that there was this belief that the warrior men were possessed by a feminine spirit.
Mm.
And now I don't know if that was him like trying to basically pledge fealty to the modern ideology, or if that was like something true. And if that is true, I think that would be maybe somewhat consistent with your case here, that like there is
Yeah, I
this
mean,
sort
you
of
have yeah, I
feminine
mean,
element to it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they have this. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but there seems to be more of a feminist component if you're going to say like Nordic mythology versus I don't know, Islam or a lot of the Middle Eastern stuff. I mean, the paganism in generally. So ancient Rome, you have this too. The Valkyries. I mean, the female warriors. That's not common. I don't know anything of that in Roman or Greek, but there's female gods, but they're doing other stuff.
Yeah, that's
They're not
true. Yeah,
warriors.
the goddesses. And this movie does have like the like Olga. I mean, like neither one of the women are portrayed as like weak or anything, right? Like they are sort of strong characters in their own right. I mean, obviously, this movie is like there is like a sort of very strong masculine streak running through it, but Olga and Gudrun are both like interesting and strong characters, and not in the sort of like woke feminist way, but in like the sort of like given the time and circumstances that they were in, yeah, there is this sort of interesting strength to them.
Well, I was worried at the end that they were going to make Olga, like when she was had him on the horse, they were going to like make her go back and like cut off Fjord's head. I thought they were going to make her to
Like save him
suddenly
at the last minute.
she was going to become the warrior and like go fight him. And like when I thought Maiden King, I thought like she would be the king. She'd go slay Fjord. They were going to take it in a ridiculous direction, and that didn't happen. Thankfully,
that would have been a very
funny.
That would have been an odd movie.
Yeah, so in a movie like this, you're more of a movie guy, and you read the interviews with the directors and stuff. Is this something like you think we could, if when we Google this, when we're done with this, we can explain, or is this something like a producer would tend to leave ambiguous? This question about Gurdon, the question about Gurdon and her ultimate motivations, and like what she was
like, yeah, I guess, like, I probably, well, I don't know. This might be like one of those, what happened at the end of The Sopranos with David Chase, where like, he never gives the answer away. And like every once in a while he'll say something that makes it seem like you finally know the answer. But then later on he'll say like, what? I didn't say that. What are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know. Like you could probably Google around and see if what Robert Eggers has said. But my guess is like, just based on like what little I've read of him, is that he wouldn't want that to be known, which I think is like, that makes sense, right? Like to sort of try to piece it together yourself. It would be interesting if he said that there is a right interpretation, but that he's not going to tell you what it is. That's different from saying, I'm not going to tell you because like it's open for interpretation, right? Like those are different things. So I think I would like it more if there is a right interpretation, but he just doesn't give it.
Yeah. And I wonder actually how popular our interpretation is. I mean, maybe me and you are just, we didn't take it the same way as everyone else.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it was pretty clear, right? Like the whole, well, I mean, I thought it was clear that it was ambiguous, but yeah,
it's ambiguous. Yeah. The carrying and the laughing, I think that does. I think without that, it would be.
And then her kissing him, right? Like it's just too weird. Like there's too many like loose threads there that it doesn't quite. I mean, it's possible that it adds up, but not quite. So yeah.
Is Elmuth smart? Because he doesn't seem to. He just buys the story. So if she's manipulated, he just buys it. He doesn't believe. He saw it, right? Is he just dumb? Like he just okay. Like he takes what she says at face value.
Is there data on Viking IQ from the year 895 AD? Well, the Flynn effect suggests that no. I don't know.
They were all pretty dumb.
They were all like, were they all like malnourished? I mean, that was another thing. So yeah. Well, I was talking about girlfriend about this. And she was like, he's massive, right? Like he's this massive brawny guy, and it's like, isn't he like malnourished and like barely eating enough to get by? Like, how does he maintain? So they're probably not that smart either.
Yeah, the evolution. I mean, it was select. I mean, they were dying all the time if they weren't big. So like the survivors were. They only have like each king. Ardville had like one son that we know of, and then like probably the way it worked was, I mean, they'd have tons, and then one or two would survive, or maybe three or four, or whatever. And then
and the women would die in childbirth all the time.
Yeah. Fjord only has two sons, so the ones that are surviving, you're seeing the strongest. Individuals survive. That's another thing with Gerda. She probably had 1,000 miscarriages. I mean, she had ended up with 2 kids, but she probably had obviously
probably some near misses, probably got very sick in childbirth, or maybe I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, back then they had like no conception of hygiene. Like imagine like trying to deliver a baby with some like witch doctor who doesn't like wash his hands, or just the level of hygiene that existed back then. Yeah, I mean, is Omelette smart? I mean, I was looking for signs of this. Like, he's clearly very athletic and physically gifted, but there was one scene that I couldn't quite tell if he understood what he was doing, or if I was maybe sort of imputing too much intelligence to his character. Was when they were playing the Viking lacrosse, and there's the scene where like the big guy on the opposing team accidentally, or I don't know if it was an accident or not, but like knocks over the little boy, right? Like the son of Gudrun and Fjolnir, the young boy, runs onto the field, and the large player on the other team like knocks him down and injures him, and then in response, Omelette tackles him.
That wasn't an accident.
Was
He was
it?
like in the moment. He was just like this big hothead, and like I guess he's just like
Yeah,
he's too stupid and like wound up to like not
yeah.
know that's like the king, the king's son. But he does it on purpose. Like it wasn't
Okay.
like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess
premeditated.
like yeah, by yeah, accident meaning like did he know that this was the king's son or was he just like yeah, yeah, but yeah, he knocks over this boy, injures him. Amleth like in response attacks him and headbutts him to death.
Yeah.
And I guess like my interpretation at the time, I'm kind of second guessing it now, was that Amleth, he doesn't care about that boy.
What's his
I don't
half brother?
think.
I
Do
think
you
he
think
does.
so? You think he cared? Because I don't know. I mean, I was yeah, but I thought that the reason he killed the player was to basically curry favor with Fjolnir and the queen to get closer to them, and also in a way to sort of spare this guy from being tortured to death, right? Like being headbutted to death is not a pleasant way to go, but I'm imagining that if he hadn't done that, that Fjolnir would have ordered him to be killed in a much more
Oh,
merciless and brutal
oh,
way.
why
So
does
was
he
that
care
like
about that?
Amleth?
No, he hates this guy. He hates this guy. This guy is like a jerk, like the
I think
whole
so.
game. And like, so why is he sacrificing himself for this guy? Like, why would he doing
Yeah,
anything
I
for
mean,
this guy?
like because he wouldn't want Fjolnir to have the satisfaction of torturing him. I'm not sure. That was yeah. It was either that
No, he
or
just wanted.
he.
He wanted to save his. I mean, he said, "I'm going to save the boy." He told
I,
Olga, "I'm going to save the boy."
I'm gonna save the boy. Did he really
Yeah,
care
yeah,
about
no.
that
Olga
boy?
says, what about your mom and the son?" He's like, "Oh, I'll save the boy." He says to Olga. Um,
Ah,
and
interesting.
so
Forgot that he cared
he
about
doesn't
him.
have any. Yeah, we don't have any indication he hates his brother. And he tells Gudrun, I'm here to save you. And like the presumably he's going to take the son with. I don't know. He might have even explicitly said this, but the understanding is like if he saves her, he's going to save the son too.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a good enough. I mean, curry favor makes sense, and then saving his brother, getting revenge for his brother also makes it. But he hates this guy. Like the whole build up to this is like that guy is like a jerk and doing like cheap shots and stuff during the game. So it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
better save this guy from being tortured by Fyodor. Fyodor doesn't get the satisfaction. Maybe like Fyodor getting
Yeah.
his son killed would be like more satisfying. I don't know. Like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
it's,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I mean, it was just odd to me that like he would headbutt. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think like yeah, maybe trying to ingratiate himself would make the
well,
most
I mean
sense in that
they're warriors. They
context.
don't
I
need
don't know.
like yeah, in their culture, they don't need like a lot of reason to kill someone. I mean, he like attacked his brother, so like he doesn't need like a lot. Like he hates this guy
Yeah.
anyway. Like he probably
Yeah,
wanted to
there's
kill
no
him.
like he's not yeah, he doesn't have to be smart either, I guess. Like if you're sort of like, a warrior in that culture in that time, like being smart is not necessarily a requirement. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, I guess like yeah, it just wasn't a sort of a prized asset back then. Like none of the character I mean like arguably assuming that what Gudrun said was true, she would be the sort of most strategic, intelligent Machiavellian character. But again, like we've been talking about whether or not that was actually the case, whether that was planned or not. But yeah, none of the other characters, it just didn't seem like not any of them
yeah.
were
No, I
particularly
mean the
bright.
only real test of the only real test of Almuth's intelligence is does he question Gudrun's story at all? And there's just there's no question. It's just there's no questioning. He's just like, oh, she's evil. Now I'm gonna go think this new thing, and like my whole life has been a lie. It's like just stop and think. Like he doesn't
Yeah,
even before that he never stops to consider when he's talking to Olga about it that like maybe she likes Fyodor. Like Olga even brings up this possibility to him, like maybe she likes Fyodor now, and he doesn't like take it seriously. He's like, oh no, she's just lying. She's just acting to save her son. And then like so he can't like see like she maybe likes Fyodor now. And then she tells him the thing, and then he can't like comprehend. He can't comprehend her motivations. Maybe she's lying. So he's just it's consistent with him being an idiot. And like so he's like he's like so maniacally focused on this, getting avenging his dad. He doesn't. I mean, like it's not always like intelligence is like perfectly correlated with morality, but like an intelligent person might like think about the moral implications, even when he's told like you have to choose between getting your revenge and kindness to your people. It never crosses his mind. It's just like kill, avenge you, father, save you, mother, kill you, Fyodor. It's just like he's got tunnel. This could be. I've been told
yeah.
this could
Well, he does
happen.
say that. He says he's been sort of driven by hate his whole life. Like all he's
Yeah,
ever known shown is hate. Like
And
that's
then you could be an intelligent person and have tunnel vision, but there's no evidence he is intelligent because again, like the big things that he can't even comprehend, like his mother's motivations.
yeah, yeah. They didn't have the Ravens progressive matrices back then, so we'll never
It's just-
we'll never know about the Viking intelligence. But yeah, my guess is they're not very bright. Did you ever read any of Gregory Clark's work on this
I
on
have,
sort
yeah.
of
I've read a few of his
he had
books.
his I'm probably butchering this to some extent, but basically his claim about like how the Black Death in Europe collectively sort of raised the intelligence of that continent by basically, so what, like a third of Europe's population died in the plague, and it was primarily concentrated in the lower social classes. And so the implication of this was that, like, there was a ton of sort of elimination of sort of less educated, less capable people, right?
Yeah.
And so before that, the I guess the implication would be that Europe used to be a lot dumber before that plague had entered and swept through. So
Yeah.
there's
I thought
evidence the
Clark's
Vikings weren't that smart.
Yeah, I see Clark's Farewell to Alms. I thought it was just he had evidence from I don't know if he did the Black Death thing, but I saw the thing for England, and he had centuries where the wealthier people had more surviving children. So for England, and then it was an explanation for the Industrial Revolution. I'd never seen a thing for Europe as a whole. It would you'd have to have data for. Different regions. The European IQ doesn't seem to differ that much by region today. I think the Clark thing. I mean, it makes
Well,
sense.
depends on which parts of Europe we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah, there's a
there's
north
a
south. I mean, there's a north south grading. I don't know if it's like IQ. I mean,
it's
it
one
might be
standard
about.
deviation in Italy, northern and southern Italy, one standard deviation difference.
Oh,
Um,
I have a hard time believing that. That could be that. I think that there's a Yeah, the some of those IQs, the showing the like really low IQs for some parts of the world, they're I don't know if they're that reliable. But
I mean,
anyways,
I think in southern Italy they would be relatively reliable,
yeah.
right? Like the data
Well,
they have there.
yeah, maybe you're right. So yeah,
Um,
so
but yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I don't think the Vikings were probably not bright, but they. I mean, like for all, I would love to know like if there's any data on like I don't know, just from like fossils or remains or whatever from that time, like were the Vikings even as sort of physically imposing as we imagine them to be? Because I'm imagining these sort of marauding bands of guys, like like their whole sort of way of life is like sort of seeming like they're living on the edge of death and like probably malnourished and sometimes starving. Like were they even bigger than the typical man or person of that time, or were they sort of like relatively smaller in stature? Like what do they look
yeah,
like really? Or
yeah.
did, I don't know, did they all look like Thor? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, you probably can get at least height from bones. I don't know if you can't get others if they're malnourished or something. But yeah, I mean, keep in mind I mean, they're selected into a kind of lifestyle, and people who can't like live by fighting and killing people are gonna not remain Vikings for long.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I can believe they were bigger than the settled people who they preyed upon. I think that has to be true, or
Yeah,
they
that's
could have been
true. I
the
mean, I
same
have read
size
that
with
like peasants were pretty bad shape too, like for a long time, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
see that going either
exactly.
way. Like nobody back then was probably in. I mean, unless you were what like a nobility or royalty or something.
Yeah, and they don't even have they don't have like literacy in this movie. That doesn't seem like you don't see them. Do you ever see them reading anything? No, it doesn't seem like they have.
Can they read? Yeah, they
Yeah,
don't have any of that. Like even the shaman, right? Like he doesn't. There's no like scrolls or books or anything, any kind of like parchment. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Is
What
he?
was like the sort of was there like a reading and writing culture among the Vikings?
No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there wasn't. There, people were illiterate. Most people, everywhere were pretty much illiterate back then, and so these people are on the edges of Europe, so they're furthest away from civilization. So they're probably some of the least likely to be literate in Europe. But yeah. By the way, the do you know? I mean, do you know how accurate like those rituals were to Scandinavian history? The the wolf thing and all that other stuff. I mean, those were pretty cool rituals. I want to know if they were.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I read that. Yeah, that the director like studied this stuff and tried
Yeah.
to like adhere very closely to like he consulted like Nordic study scholars and people who are experts in that
Yeah.
history and tried to be as close as possible to what what is known about that time. And yeah, I thought it was all like very fascinating. I mean, I'm reading this book now about the Yanomama, the Amazonian tribe in South America, and yeah, it's like it's just interesting, like how similar these cultures who've never had contact with one another are, like what that taps into in human beings about like sort of appointing some kind of like shamanic being who probably like eats mushrooms or takes some kind of drugs and enters some kind of spirit world, and
Mm.
people enter a trance, and this is sort of this rite of passage by going through this like sort of psychological ordeal. And yeah, there is something like interesting, and probably it taps into something innate about humans that we're kind of that's absent from our lives today, right? Where we have
Yeah.
like no real
So
contact with that kind of way of thinking.
yeah. By the way, you said the movie broke even. According to this, I'm just still looking at the Wikipedia page. It says that it grossed 33 million in the U.S. and Canada, 30 million elsewhere for 63 million. According to Variety, the film needs 140 to cover production and 200 million to break even. So it doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to
Oh damn,
breaking
okay,
even.
May
This is right.
22nd 2002. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
May
know where I
20th. That's
read that
2 days
other
ago.
one.
So,
Yeah.
you're at 60.
So it is it's
It's
very
a
much losing money, it looks like. Okay, yeah. Wait a minute. No. Oh, I see where I got. Well, is
under
this where I got it?
reception.
Yeah. So under the on the right in the the box on the right side on the very bottom where it says budget and box office right next to the
Yeah.
plot. Yeah, so it's budget 70 to 90 million, box office 63.9 million. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
like
that doesn't
not
cover.
quite.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have advertising, you have I don't know, you have other costs, right, to
Yeah,
get there.
that's
So
true.
it's yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
I hope
like
this movie doesn't. Yeah, it's not a financial success, but it is very much like a sort of a critical success. So yeah, I don't know. Like, what's better then? What's better? Sort of like making some like Avengers 12 and making half a billion
you know what,
dollars,
you're
but
right.
like not
That's a good point because everyone is complaining about the franchises, but it's like here's something that's awesome that was just made in 2022 that's not a franchise and everyone loves it and it can't come anywhere close to breaking even. It's like the stupid masses, like popcorn eating masses, they just want like the same movie over and over again, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
like
That is well, okay. I wonder if this well, that's box office, right? But you said it's on Amazon Prime, so I wonder if it will manage to recuperate some of those costs by,
yeah, it'll get
through Amazon and through streaming.
yeah, it'll add to it. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I think like it's like you get your biggest hit like at the start of when a movie comes out. I don't know if Amazon Prime gets you like hundreds of millions of dollars. Um, yeah, I doubt it will get close. I'm not an expert in this. I don't know. It could become a
Yeah,
cult hit, like the reviews and people listening to podcasts like this and watching people like us. Things can become like hot later, and you could add to it. But yeah, I think if you get 60 million to make up another 140 million after it's been out for a few months, I think that's hard. I think you get that either early or you don't get it at all.
yeah. I think yeah, that's too bad. I think there's something about that yeah, people. I guess this is why, right? Like, this is why the studios will only greenlight movies that are based on some kind of existing property. I mean, all the comic book movies and stuff, but then like based on like children's books or like Sonic the Hedgehog things. Yeah, like
Sonic
and
the
so
Hedgehog.
and
Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, like getting like a washed up Jim Carrey to play Doctor Robotnik, and like I guess that's the kind of stuff that sells. And like making a movie like this is like kind of a risk now, right? Like this is true everywhere about like whether it's movies or TV shows or books or anything, right? Like all the studios and publishers only want to bank on sure things because why take the risk? So yeah, that's too bad. But at least like I think this movie was probably critically acclaimed enough that the director will be able to go on and make another uh another film. So
Yeah, I mean he'll have other chances. Whether they'll give him a $70 million budget, that's the
yeah.
question to do something awesome like this. And if
Yeah.
not,
Unless
that's
I mean, it would be interesting. So if they let him um do like a sort of reimagining of like Conan the Barbarian, right? Like if you can sort of like match his vision with like some previously existing, or like do like a remake or something of things that have already been done, but then like but according to like the way he wants to do it, I think that might be an interesting sort of a
Yeah,
compromise of like, you know, we're going to redo Conan the Barbarian, but Robert Eggers is going to direct it. We're going to give him a bunch of money, and like the popcorn eating masses, as you say, like they'll watch a remake of that movie, but it won't be the Conan the Barbarian they're expecting, right? Like it'll be some other kind of like twisted thing here, well, you know, like the Northman or something.
Conan is a Conan the Barbarian like a brand name today. I think even like for us, like I don't know. It's like an old reference. It seems like from 1950s or something. Like
No,
for
it's
maybe
like the
for the silent generation.
70s,
Yeah,
80s. No, that's like the 70s, I think. It was, yeah, I actually don't know when that movie came out. You know, I've
yeah, it's
never
a
actually
brand name
seen it,
for yeah for
but
boomers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's enough boomers and yeah, maybe young people too, right? Like Arnold still has his fans. Yeah, I think it's still you know, strong enough to be revived. But that was just
Yeah,
an example, you know, like I don't know, something else, you know, some
Arnold is
other.
unusually cool. I mean, I watched Pumping Iron just like in the documentary, like just a year or two ago. Have you seen it?
I don't think so. I've seen clips. I've seen clips of stuff that he said. He's a very
I was
entertaining.
I was mesmerized. It was either on Prime or I think it was Prime or something like that. I was mesmerized by it. I was just like, oh, this is Arnold in the '70s pumping iron with like girls all around. I mean, this is just the coolest, you know, the golden age of bodybuilding. I was like, this is awesome. I get the Arnold is unique and became governor and all that. Um, yeah, yeah. Sad note. We've discovered like the reason why society art has been decadent. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's
like what else
anything.
could he could do like something else, right? Like redo you know, the Iliad or Hercules, or like, yeah, we just sort of take like historical or historical fiction. I'm just thinking
But
like if
is
you're
that
not going
gonna
to be able to
get
do an
people?
original story, then at least like do something cool from another era that people are familiar
Yeah,
with.
yeah. But is the Iliad like a brand name like Spider Man? Is I don't know if it's like it's something close to.
Yeah, I don't
I mean, I
know.
would love. I
Yeah.
mean, like me and you, I would love to see like $100 million movie about like Song Dynasty China and like the Arab conquest and like everything like but we're nerds. People just they want their
Yeah,
same
yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of like, yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, what would people like Hercules, or I don't know. Yeah, some like, yeah. I think Rome is still like pretty interesting to
Rome
the
is sort
average
of cool.
person.
Rome is unique. You can still do stuff with Rome.
Yeah,
Um,
like Gladiator
I
was
mean,
huge, so I don't know. Yeah, I think there's some interest there.
yeah. Well, either way, did you read Ross Douthat's book on decadent culture? I've just read parts of it.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
read
yeah.
that?
Same. I've read passages.
Mm. Yeah, same here. So I think maybe does he bring this up that this is the popcorn eating masses' fault, or did we just come up with that theory?
Yeah, I don't remember if he comments specifically on movies. The only thing that comes to mind with Ross Douthat was about how like people in movies aren't having sex anymore. Did you read about this?
Yeah, I
I
did.
think
No,
this.
he does talk about movies and franchises. It's not like a big theme in the book, but he does mention it. And then I don't think he ever mentions like my theory, which is, I guess our theory is, that it's just, you can get like, you can make it for the most expensive stuff, right? You've got to make that money back and you've got to just have the broadest appeal possible, lowest common denominator. And yeah, I guess that makes sense why you would do the franchise thing as things get more expensive and you've got to make the money. I also wonder how much
Yeah,
it just becomes a business and like it's not just guys who care about art. I think that like there's a sort of a financialization of everything, like universities. I mean, like not they're a joke. I see billboards of like USC, like get your online masters like during night, and it's like USC like we're supposedly serious schools are doing this. I don't think they would have done this for the money. 60 or 70 years ago. Just preying on whoever and getting just getting paid for whatever.
yeah.
So
Selling off pieces of your brand. Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't seem to
well,
damage them.
yeah. I guess this conversation took a depressing turn, but it was still a great movie. I mean,
That was good. There was a sex scene in it. Ross Douthat would like this movie. There is they have sex in the woods, Olga and Omleth, and so yeah,
yeah,
there's
and all that.
something for everyone. There is
Yeah.
some female nudity, you know. Oh, male nudity too. I think, don't you see Willem Dafoe's dick in this? So there's something for
Do you see
everyone.
his? Do you see? Well, oh, I thought he was like wearing like a something. Like I didn't know if it was a real
I
thing.
don't know.
Uh,
I don't know.
is
Well,
he
you can
just?
imagine it's.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everyone, go watch this movie because you want to, and then you want to vote with your pocketbook some more movies like original stuff gets made. And
Yeah.
until next
Go
time,
see it.
Rob.
All right. See you, Richard.